Kimchi, one of the gorgeous fermented foods, and unfortunately I don't have the right chili powder. So I'm going to try substitute it with a peri. Normally you use a Korean chili flake with this, but I'm going to try with the peri chili, see how it works out. But the basic principle is the same. These probiotic fermented vegetable dishes, they're fantastic. You make a big huge container of it and you just eat it as a kind of a snack all the time. You can just serve it on a piece of rice. In itself, it's just something that's great to have all the time, and it is incredibly healthy. First things first, get your Chinese leaf. Pretty easy to get this one. You just take out your little stalk on the side. And then I'm just going to chop that into nice chunks. And put it into a good sized bowl. Again, this is well worth playing around with these kind of fermented foods. There's, again, from your own gut biome and the complexity in the gut biome, it's been well found that these kind of fermented foods seem to have almost supernatural effects. They're just really well worth playing with. Anyway, big bowl of my cabbage. And what I'm going to do is get a coarse sea salt. Plenty of it, because we'll be washing off this surplus. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of water in there as well. Just to kind of dissolve that salt. And then for at least 30 minutes, let the salt do its thing. And it'll start to break down the cabbage, just to get it all mixed in there. Get your hands in and give it a good mix. And what's going to happen down is the salt will start to break down that cabbage and start to draw the excess moisture out of it. That's a really important part of this process. So, just going to put that aside for now. If I think it needs a bit more of a mixing, I'll just give it a bit more mixing. You'll find that it'll break itself down a little bit now as well, almost as if you cooked it with the salt. And now what I'm going to do is make the kind of sauce which I'm going to use, which will become the basis for the ferment. So into a food processor or liquidizer, I should say. What I'm going to do is add my potatoes, which I've just peeled and pre-cooked. Just going to put a little drop of water in there, just to give the potatoes and the liquidizer something to catch. Then into that I'm going to put a couple of onions. Just give them a little bit of a chop, smaller, so that the liquidizer can catch them. I'm using 2 red onions. I've got about a half a garlic here, which I've peeled, and a generous amount of ginger. I'd say about 40 grams of ginger, which has just been peeled. Also into that, just for my seasonings, I'm going to use a little bit of aniseed powder, not too much, about a teaspoon. And ideally you should use the Korean chili flake, but again, you see how it works out with the peri. Again, play around with the seasonings a bit yourself, the chili. Be a little careful, their chili powders vary, so if you use a hot chili powder, just use a small amount, and depending on your own tolerance of spiciness. But I'm going to use about 3 good tablespoons or teaspoons of my peri because I want just a nice little piece of zinc to it. And then into that I'm going to add some Thai or some fish sauce. I'm using a Thai fish sauce, it's the one I had. I'm sure there's Korean ones out there, but the fish sauce is an important thing. That's the main kind of seasonings. I've added about, say, three tablespoons thereabouts. Then I'm going to just blend all that together and then wait for my cabbage to kind of break down before mixing them all together and just putting them all together. Very, very simple dish. Just going to add a drop more water in there just to get that more saucy in texture. So now all it's a case of, as you have your basic sauce on here, which is just nice. I'm just going to wait for everything to kind of, this cabbage to break down and just mix one with the other into my ferment, and then let it do its thing over a couple of days, over about a day anyway at least, just to make it all kind of come together and come to life, if you like. So after about 30 minutes, you'll find that this kimchi, this cabbage, which has been in that salt, suddenly is becoming really broken down by the salt. So now we want to get that salt off it, because you don't want it too salty. So what I'm going to do here is pop it in the sink, the cabbage, and then into the bowl. Just take your time with it. You could use a colander with this and try press it, but I just find this gets more of the water out. So just drain that through then. And then it's only a case of mixing our sauce with kimchi. I recommend you use a pair of disposable gloves with this one, because the only way to really mix it in properly is with your hands. So I think I'm after getting a pair of small gloves where I probably need a little bit bigger, but it'll make it work somehow. Close enough. So that nice little sauce you made with the peri, the potatoes, the onion, the ginger, the garlic. Now what you do is you just pour one into the other and give the whole thing a good mixing, making sure that the sauce is coating all of the cabbage. And again, having rinsed and getting as much of the cabbage off as we can. And as you can see, having salted it, it has broke down quite a bit now at this stage. Sometimes people put other vegetables in here with this, you know, radishes and things like that at this point. And you know, you can play around with this. There's hundreds of recipes. But again, it's one of those things that you can just have as a kind of a storeroom fallback. And then it's only a case of popping that I'm going to pop this actually into, I could use my big bowl. Actually, I already use my big bowl. And it's only a case of popping it into a good clean container and allowing that to ferment itself for a day or two, getting those good healthy bacterias, everything to start coming together into it. It's a lovely fresh tasting condiment. So lid on that, and what you'll see is a little bit of fermentation starting to occur with it in a day or two. Don't put it in the fridge, leave it out, and there are those probiotics developing in it, which is a great thing to be bringing into your diet. And then it's only a case of, you could serve this just as it is, as a little snack, a little bit of rice and just the kimchi on top. Endless amount of uses for it. It's only a case of, but it's a great little one to have and know how to be able to just fall back on. So, having made my kimchi, now this is one I had in a jar, and again, you have this lovely, rich flavour, and you really don't need very much with this. It's kind of slightly fermented. Now the only thing is, when you open your jars, just be careful because they do tend to bubble over sometimes if it's fermenting correctly. So all I've done here, very simple dish. A little piece of just freshly cooked rice. Just give a little idea of something that you can do with your kimchi. Just going to take a couple of tablespoons of kimchi, cabbage with plenty of the juice, which I'm just going to pour directly over my rice. I'm going to give that a little bit of kind of cook together, just to infuse it in together a little bit. Really doesn't need anything else more than that. Maybe just a little drop more of the juice. And actually you make cocktails and everything out of this juice if you really felt so inclined. Now I have a few chives here. You could use spring onions, anything at all really. And just mix them through, and now you have a lovely little rice kimchi. And with that, doesn't need anything else. What I'm going to do is just pop that into a bowl, and what I've done is soft boiled an egg. I've just peeled it very carefully. I cooked it at 4 minutes, about 4.5 minutes, and just softly cook it. I'm going to pop that into my bowl. And this is one of the many things that you can do. You can make pancakes, you can make all sorts of things. There's your rice. Pop your soft boiled egg on top. And then a little bit of chive over that. And then nice and carefully just chop your egg on top. And now you have your proteins, you have your carbs, you have your veggies, and that gives just that really lovely, eggy, interesting, really nice and simple, a nice little balanced kind of snacky kind of, you know, filler up your kind of dish. And this Korean food, this Korean styles of food is just really lovely. So that's just a little idea of what to do with kimchi as well. Great little thing, well worth having.